Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back to another edition of Intuitive Angling. Thanks a lot for making some time to watch the video. And man, my eyes are puffed up and watering like crazy. We have got such bad ragweed here in Southwest Missouri that like everybody in the house is all stopped up, and I don't like to take medicine, so I'm just sort of suffering my way through it right now. So if I look a little puffed up, that's why. Today we got a really good video with you guys. I'm going to show you guys how to set up, how to rig, and how to talk about how to fish my fall tube popping technique. And this is something that works real good. Usually it starts about the end of September, it lasts on up until mid-November. I'm going to show you guys how to set it up, rig it, and give you guys some tips and advice on how to go about fishing it. Real quick before we get started, just wanted to give you guys the weekly reminder. If you haven't had a chance, please go over and check out fishthemoment.com. We got our fall lake map breakdowns up for sale. We've been working on them a bunch the last few weeks. Got lakes all over the country. We can build you guys a personal breakdown of a fall lake. A really good resource to learn more about your favorite lake. We also have our virtual fishing lessons. You can book a 1-hour fishing lesson with us. Myself, Matt Steffen, Jimmy Easterly, Miles Berghoff. You can do that at fishthemoment.com, and also check out the new bass fishing YouTube channel I'm involved with called Bass Fishing Declassified, which is brought to you by Fish the Moment. And I'll put all the link in the descriptions there for that. Much appreciated. Okay guys, let's talk about this a little bit. Now this tube popping deal, it got started quite a few years ago up north. It was originally designed for a technique for the northern smallmouth, although a lot of the old dudes here in the Ozarks have been using it forever. I remember using this thing back in the early 90s at Bull Shoals, Table Rock Lake. A lot of the old guides figured this out, and it sort of just caught on, but it's a really good technique. Like I said, in the fall time of the year, if you got a lake that's got fairly clean water, you need probably at least 3 foot of visibility. I prefer like the 4 to 5 foot range. And it's just a really good way to catch, especially if you have a lake that's got a lot of smallmouth and spotted bass in it. So the first thing you need to do is get you like a 3.5 or 4 inch tube. Colors vary. I like usually some type of, green pumpkin or watermelon, something like that. And then of course you rough it up. Roughing up a tube is really important. It's probably more important than the worms I talk about roughing up, because most tubes have a fairly thick wall in them, and they're super hard when you first get them, but once you rough them up, it really softens them up. And then take your pair of scissors and just make a slit about 3/4 of an inch long, just anywhere along the tube there. This is going to be the channel for your hook. Take your tube head. You want some type of a cylindrical tube head. These fit up in it pretty good. I usually like to wet it first. It gets in there a little easier. Then open your slot up like that and simply insert it in the slot. And in addition, once you do this slot opens it up a little bit more, and it gives you a little bit more of a hook exposure for hook penetration. And then you got your setup like that, just simple tube setup. Another thing on this, guys, is with the head on there, for the popping technique, you want to use a fairly heavy head. I use at least a 3/8, and I prefer a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 if it's windy, but excuse me, most of the time it's a 1/2 ounce head that I like in there. That's what this is, but just set up like that. A lot of times, another thing I'll do is I'll take and I'll pull off some of the tentacles and to make them like a different length, and that gives it sort of a roughed up look, and it seems like it gets a few more bites. Okay, that's the bait. Now the technique you want to use, for me, this technique is all about main lake and secondary points. We talk about main lake and secondary points a lot in the fall because they're one of the prime structures for fall time fish, especially in a clear water lake. The thing that I like to do, there's 2 different structures, but the first one is the main lake and secondary points. And I prefer them if they're a little bit flatter points. I don't really like the steep rocky type points. If you got points in the lake that you fish that are gravelly or small rock or sandy or mud that go way out and drop off, those are the best type of points, the flatter type points, because you're not looking to catch fish on this tube popping technique on a drop. It's usually just on the gradual slope of the point. But I just get out there normally in like 20-25 foot of water, just start fan casting around the point. I'll target that 5 to 20 foot zone, and when that bait gets the bottom, I'll let it go to the bottom, and I'm usually using, some type of either a 7-foot fairly heavy action spinning rod, or a 7-foot, excuse me, medium heavy bait casting rod, 10 to 12 pound test fluorocarbon, and I'll throw it out there. And once it hits the bottom, I just pop it off hard like that. Let it sink to the bottom, pop it off hard. Try to get the thing where it pops off the bottom 2 to 3 feet. That's the key with it. And surprisingly, you don't get many bites on the fall. It's like, I bet 90-95% of the bites I get is once the bait hits the bottom, and when I jerk it off the bottom, they get it as soon as that starts jerking off the bottom real fast like that. It triggers that reaction strike. And conditions, it can be anything. I've caught them on cloudy, I've caught them on windy conditions, I've caught them on just bluebird skies, calm. It doesn't really matter as far as the conditions once those fish get set up in that zone to be caught. The other type of area I like to fish with them is some type of just a gravel bank, just a flat main lake gravel bank, usually somewhere close to a point. It can work good. Just get on those flatter banks, cover water the same way. And with the popping technique, you can cover a tremendous amount of water with it, especially when you're using a half-ounce head. The thing sinks really fast, and it's not like a slow technique. It's not like you're dragging it like a football head jig, popping that thing hard off the bottom. Another thing you'll find out about the tube popping technique is if you've got a lake that has a lot of drum, which is usually associated with smallmouth, when you pop it off the bottom, you don't catch many drum. The drum usually come more on a drag, but the popping will get the reaction strike from a bass. So anyway, guys, real simple technique. Just go and get you some, 3.5, 4-inch tubes, set it up. The only thing different from this technique from just the straight tube fishing is the technique of the hard pop on there. It makes all the difference in the world. Definitely think it just adds a new technique to your arsenal. So hope it helps you guys catch some fish, guys, and we'll talk later. See you.